Hey everybody, it's Tom with TKI. Today we are going to be doing an install of our new oil tank for the C-tec motors. We're going to show you what parts you need to take off of your old oil tank from the stock sled, also how everything goes together and how it's mounted. So you'll be receiving an oil tank along with a bag of, I believe there's 6 screws, an elbow, and 2 brackets. So this will be, the screws will be to mount the brackets to the tank and then also mount the filler neck to the top of the tank as well. You can use the stock screws if you prefer with the Torx bit, but we are including some of those screws in order to make it easy. You will also need to take the stock cap and filler neck off of the stock tank, along with remove the oil level sensor and also the red bushing or grommet that they use to seal the oil tank or the sensor into the tank. So these are 2 pieces, even though they look like one, they are 2. First off, we're going to need to remove the contents of the bag. So you'll have a lower bracket and then the upper bracket. And again, you'll have 6 screws and an elbow. When you go to install this, you'll want to make sure to use some blue Loctite on the elbow threads and also all of the 6 screw threads for the mounting process. So we're going to go ahead and put this together. First off, I like to put some Loctite onto the threads for the pipe fitting. You want to take your metric hammer and turn it so that it is basically 90 degrees from the logo. So you can see the logo there. You'll want this to come off 90 degrees or slightly past 90, about like that. Next, you will make sure that the O-ring is on the bottom of the filler neck. So if you set that on top, and actually you'll want to put a drop of blue Loctite in each one of those holes, so you could actually do all 6 holes right away. Filler neck sits on top, and you'll take your screws. They are a 4mm Allen wrench, and you'll just go ahead and start all 4 screws before tightening any of them down. And on the plastic, I usually tighten them until you feel friction against the plastic. You don't have to over tighten so you don't break it. Otherwise you'll be buying yourself a new filler neck. So that's what it looks like so far. Now we will take our upper bracket, and the upper bracket will mount just like that in that location. Take your 2 screws, make sure to start one, and come over and tighten up the second one. And go ahead and tighten those 2. So now you've got the top bracket on. Now it's time for the lower bracket. The lower bracket will be mounted in location similar to this. So this bracket arm needs to come out on the side of the oil level sensor. So we can put a couple drops of blue Loctite. There are 2 holes that are directly across from each other. That is for the pump. These 2 are for the bracket. So we can set our bracket on top. And of course I can't count because I actually need 8 screws. Make sure you don't leave that screw in the tank. So pull the screw out, start, and this bracket does have a little bit of movement a little bit of movement. When you look at the bottom of this, we just don't want the bracket to overlap the center bore. So if you kind of see where I've got the brackets, I've got a little bit of clearance here, a little bit on the screw closest to me, so I'm just going to go ahead and snug those down, and then I can tighten those. Now your brackets and your filler neck are all installed. Now we can go ahead, and the rubber grommet that came out the side of the tank, if you insert that into the side of the tank, and now your sensor. So when the oil level when the tank is full, the oil level sensor actually sits across and it closes the circuit. As the oil drops, the sensor will fall, and that will give you a low oil alarm. So when you insert this into the tank, you want to make sure that the float drops straight down, just like we've got pictured. So if you come in and basically insert it, and it will press hard, you may have to twist it a little bit to get it fully seated. So on the side of the sensor, there is this flat. That has to be vertical with the tank, just like how it is. And then to double check, if you look on the inside of the tank, you'll be able to see the float is not bent. And then if you come in here, start throwing stuff. If you come in here, you can see that the float is actually moving the correct direction. So oil tank is complete. Now we're going to mount it on the sled. All right, now we are going to install the tank onto the sled. So when the tank fits in, we are using this top screw on the chain case to mount the top bracket, and then down below where your footwell goes into your sled right here, or your toe hold or toe catch, whatever you'd like to call it, we have the second bracket sits on top of that. There will be a couple screws that you will have to mark and drill for those. That way we've got a mounting location. But I like to take a bolt and a screw. You can use your stock chain case ones. And I will start this and just snug the screw up. So that way I've got somewhere where I can reference the 2 lower screws. So if you just tighten this one or snug this one up, and then the bottom bracket, you can kind of push around a little bit, and it'll fit right onto the top of that toe hold. All right, now that we've got that in place, and the bottom bracket is not an exact location, it's kind of, we've got a pretty big footprint to mount it there. Just kind of depends on where you want it. If you slide it a little bit further out where it rests naturally, it gives you a little bit more room on the back side for the tensioner bolt to be able to adjust your belt. I like to use a silver Sharpie. You take the Sharpie, you'll look down and see 2 holes in the top of the bracket. I'll just go ahead and mark both of those holes. All right, now that we have the holes marked, we can remove this top screw again. And set the tank off to the side so that we can drill the holes in the toe hold. I would drill these holes at a 1/4 inch drill bit. Now we're going to drill the 2 screw holes for the bracket. You'll want to make sure to take a rag or an air gun to clean the shavings out of this area, also to deburr the screw holes. But the bracket is aluminum, so it usually cleans up pretty easy. Now, before we get too far and mount the tank, we actually need to install the electronic pump into the tank. As you can see, this is one of our old housings that we made, that we included with our kits before. So we will remove this pump and we're going to insert it into the bottom of the tank. Don't forget to use some blue Loctite, and then you can use the 2 stock screws that held your oil pump in before. So the holes are offset from one side to the other, so be aware of that as you're putting it in, that if the holes don't line up, rotate it 180 degrees and the holes will line up then. Alright, now that we've got the oil pump removed from the old housing, or in some people's case this may be from the stock oil pump, we want to insert this into the bottom of the tank. And again, we will want to put a couple drops of Loctite into the screw holes on the bottom of the pump or on the bottom of the tank. And then we'll slide the pump into the bottom of the tank. Now keep in mind, you're going to have to look to see if the screw holes line up before you insert the tank all the way. In this case, this does not. So I'm going to rotate it. That does not. So the power plug cord will actually come out by the bracket. So if you start pressing and twist a little bit, the O-rings will slide in, or they'll pop in. And then you'll line up your screw holes, insert a couple bolts, and again you can reuse the stock screws that you took out. Alright, now you can flip your tank back upright. And I prefer to run the hoses on this side of the bracket. And I don't want to put it against the chain case side. I prefer to put them on this side of the bracket. So now we can find our screw that we had that attaches the top bracket to the chain case. You can get that screw started, and then we can also just snug it up. Make sure to try and keep all the dirt and debris out of the tank. Now you can come down here, find your 2 screws that you drilled in the floorboard, and then you'll insert a bolt with a nut. I like to use a bolt and a nut over a pop rivet, because if you ever have to take this tank off, it basically requires a couple bolts. I like using a lot of 10mm or a 6mm thread size with a 10mm head. That way it's easy to undo, your chain case cover, your brackets, anything like that. Then you can reconnect your top return line, and then also your pump sensor. So we'll get the bottom bracket mounted, and then we'll go ahead and start plugging all of our speed sensor back in, oil pump, and then also the oil level sensor back in. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out to us at the shop, or check us out on Facebook or Instagram. Also, you can email us through the website, TKICNC.com, and you can click the Help tab. It's not even the help tab. It's the contact us tab. I have no idea why I said help tab. I need a lot of help. Anyway, hopefully you found this useful. Thanks and have a great day.